We saw how to send a post request in the last video. We also saw that we do get back a response which has a lot of data in it. And we'll have a look at using this response in this video when we also have a look at sending a GET request, so that we're not only able to store our data on a server, but also that we're able to get it back and use it in our application. And for using it, we'll also have a look at how we can extract data from the response we're getting back. Well, let's start by adjusting our app to actually be able to fetch data and use that. I'll add a new button primary here, where I will say get data. This should simply trigger this, that I fetch the data, and I will therefore add a click listener where I say fetch data. That shall be the method which should get executed. Of course, I still need to create this method. So here is the get data button, and below this get data button here, I want to have an unordered list, and in this unordered list, I'll also give it a class of list group. I want to output some list items with the list group item bootstrap class, where I basically output my user data. Now we can do this with v4, we learned that, and for that we would need a users array. So I'll quickly create this new array here. Users is an empty array initially, and there I simply want to loop through them. And since I already have user as a name here in my data, I'll use just u here in users. Users of course refers to this array. And then here I want to output u.username, and then separate with a dash maybe u.email. So that is how I output my user data. Of course, we don't see anything here because it is empty. And yeah, the fetch data method is not defined yet. Thank you. I will do so in a second. So this is how we output it. Now I will add the fetch data method, and in there I now want to fetch the data from Firebase and then somehow store it in this array, and hopefully the list will then somehow, well, be updated in the DOM here in my HTML code. Let's start step by step and see how we can send a GET request. Of course, we still use this $HTTP, now with the GET method. And in this GET method, we pass the same URL as before. I don't need to pass an extra argument here. But what I do need to do, of course, is I want to handle my response with the then function here. Now, in this function, I do get my response, I know that. And the cool thing is, viewResource now gives us some helper methods on responses. This response not only has the body and so on, it also has some methods we can use. And one very useful method is the JSON method here. JSON basically extracts the body of the response and converts it into a JavaScript object which we may use. This is very handy, of course, because otherwise we get back a body which is a string per definition. It can only be a string, and we would have to manually parse this into a JavaScript object while the JSON function does this for us. Now this of course means we should now store it. Let's store it in a constant data and have a look at how this data looks like then. So if I print data here, let's see if this works the way we want it to work. If I now head over and I hit get data, oh, I somehow get a promise here and not really the extracted data. Why is that? The reason is response JSON also gives us back a promise and not the extracted data right away, because it's an asynchronous task. It doesn't have the data right away. So in order to really access it, I can't do it like this. Instead, what I should do is not store it in a constant, but return response JSON and then simply chain another then method here to now use this extracted data in here. So we may name this data, therefore, and now let's log it. Here data will be extracted because this asynchronous task of extracting it with the JSON method and getting the response and everything, all these things have now been finished. So now we do have access to the data. So if I now hit get data again, now we see an object where we actually do have our strange IDs, and inside of these IDs, we do have our user data. Now that's nice, and actually that's everything I need to be able to loop through it, because this is now each a user, and that's exactly what I wanted to print here. So in order to do so, I now should somehow use my extracted data here and assign it to my user's array. Now, the thing we're getting back is no array though. It's an object where we do have key value pairs, right? With these cryptic keys and then the values our objects or being our objects. Now we can easily transform this into an array though. And there are different ways of doing so. I will show you one. So my result array shall be an empty array initially, let's say. Then I loop through all my keys in data. Data again is an object where the keys are these cryptic strings. And then I can simply say result array push data and then access the key of the current iteration. So to get the value of that key. And then here finally all I need to do is I need to set this users, so this users array up here, equal to result array. That's one way. Of course, there would be other ways, but this should work. And now let's see this in action. I will reload this, hit get data, and you see it took a couple of milliseconds, but then the data was there, and Vue.js is clever enough to update the DOM because it recognizes that we set a new value to this users, and that is a trigger for Vue.js to update the DOM. And therefore, this does now work as intended. I'll just add some line breaks below the button to make it look a bit nicer. But now we see fetching the data works fine, and this is how we can send a GET request, and also very important, how we can use the data we get back, extract it with response.json, which also returns as a promise, and then use this promise down here to, well, use it how we need to use it, to transform the data in the way we need to transform it, or whatever your plan is with the data you got back.